What is up, everybody? This is Isaiah Negron, and you're listening to the One on One podcast. This is the show that builds up leaders through transparency, purpose, and creativity. So, welcome and come on into the office because it's time for your one on one. Let's get it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the One on One podcast. My name's Isaiah. I'm your host here. Super excited to be back with another episode. And tonight, or not tonight, today, we have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about leadership. And specifically, we want to talk about what they call intergenerational leadership or cross-generational leadership, and how do you lead people that may be on your team or in your sphere of influence that are cross multiple generations. And so a little bit about me. What I do is I am a training content creator, and I invited a very special guest, someone who has mentored me, someone who has really taken me under his wing. And so I thought it would be no better to have my personal boss, my personal mentor, Brad Dameron. How you doing, Brad?
Doing good. Thanks for that intro, man. That's quite the intro.
No, I'm glad you're here.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit, I want to kind of define what this cross-generational leadership is by definition, and then we can kind of just like dive into your experiences with this.
Okay.
So intergenerational leadership or cross-generational leadership is defined by conscious generational awareness, by clear definition of leaders from various generations, right? Meaningful engagement between leaders, and cross-generational partnerships on leadership, on practice, and then also that mutual respect between leaders. And so I know you have quite a range of leadership experience. So tell me a little bit about like your journey, where you've started, where you are now, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once I graduated college, I began teaching at a small school, well, relatively small rural school in Chapman, Kansas, and still not sure what I was going to do, but with my life and everything. But at the same time, wanted to make sure that I was doing what I could to help educate young folks, and now I call them young folks. I guess I'm at that age. Everyone else are young; they're all young folks, but had a real good mentor teacher. Lifelong friend that I was able to get to know. We're family friends for over 2 decades, probably 3 decades now, close to it. And just started there, just learning how to teach, learning how to coach in some sports just because it was enjoyable. But then just really started to understand, how to work with other teachers and learn from them as well. And 4 years passed of doing that, some great experience, and just how to build content in the lesson sphere. And then came to a decision where I just was ready to move on from teaching, and then went to we moved closer to home, as it were, closer to my wife's family, and took on a job at Garmin International in 2001. So date myself there. Yeah. And then it was in the call center, and they really small call center at the time, 30 people. Now they're all over in a few different areas of the country now, and they've grown. But I've seen growth from 30 to 600, close to 600 at one point, and was blessed enough to be kind of part of that growth, and helped build a training program. Had some great leaders, mentors during that time, kind of give structure to it. Just went throughout the call center, and after that left the call center, took an opportunity to move into the sales training portion of Garmin, where they had that. They've eliminated that element. After a few years, they were growing quite a bit, and so a lot of the folks that reported to me became actually sales reps, or found some other opportunities. And I became a content creator, in a way, event specialist. And then once COVID hit, became they weren't doing events, they weren't doing anything else at that time. And so another opportunity for sales came in. That's just not for me. Lots of cold calling. One thing I did take away some great experience from that role. It was kind of but it just wasn't for me. I still carry some of those things from that previous role between Garmin, and it's called a place called Access Marketing. I was a manufacturing or a regional sales rep, and so we represented several people. But I took away some pretty good high points on that I even use today when I've mentioned you may not have known it, but there's some elements there too. And then opportunity came to be a training manager or a trainer. And of the two, I interviewed for a training manager at IT Renew, which is now Iron Mountain, and trying to grow a training program. So that experience I had from before kind of definitely has helped and shape what we do today. So that's just kind of been my occupational journey. And I don't know where else you want me to go with it.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. I know that you were at Garmin and all that stuff, and how all of that kind of transitioned into training manager, and now you're at Iron Mountain. And so, it's been quite a journey for you. I could see that. I can imagine the jump from like teaching to like Garmin is probably like a whole different world. So when you coming from Garmin, and you stepped into your current position now as a training manager at Iron Mountain, you're leading, me, you're leading Abe, you're leading, just our little team here, Ian, right? And so what were some of the things that you noticed right away when it came to leading a team of, you got millennials, you got Gen Z or Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
And so like, what were some of those things like off the cusp that you were like, oh, this is going to be a little bit different, or, what were some of those kind of key things that you grabbed onto?
It'd been a while since I actually had my own team. It'd been several years since I had an opportunity to, I was doing my own kind of, role. So I didn't really have to think about, what it means to lead. But at the same time, I still wanted to be a good example in my work and work hard. So that's one thing that I wanted to make sure of, is that, while we're bringing folks in, is that they have a clear understanding of expectations, no question. Even though we're in this brand new situation, there's no training that's
right.
There's no training program.
Brand new.
As far as program structure, there's training, on-the-job training, but in lots of different materials in different departments. But from a formalized kind of training program, what's that look like? And so we interviewed Abe initially, who's in the Sterling location, obviously, but really hit it off during the interview with him. He, in our personality, in our team meetings, and has a real good understanding. He has a good solid background in training already, and so I just saw in him some of those key traits, and just pretty laid back, but understands how to take care of business. And so within his talent and strengths, I saw in him opportunity to just continue to build what we have in Olathe. Is also, we want to mirror what's in Sterling. So just we're on the same page. We want to have the same type thing. But from the intergenerational, I'll be honest, I try not to really focus on generation. I don't know. I know that's what our topic is.
No.
A lot of times I just want to go to where the person is. The employee is.
Yeah.
They've got life outside of work. They've got their own situations going on, but listening and I've just never had to bring a focus of, because you are not in my generation, I have to have a different kind of focus on how I approach you. I always want to approach individuals, and I think this is good for everyone, just from a plain perspective of I'm here to listen, I'm here to help, I'm here to meet the objectives and deliverables that our bosses want, but at the same time, what space do you need to work in that can help you out? As I see in you, as I guess we'll call you a Gen Z is more affectionately known as, kind of the inside the office joke. One of the first weeks that we had, I'm having a little quote unquote fun, Googling, how do you speak to these millennials and these Gen Zers? And as I read through some of the list, to me, I'm like, well, they find the internet valuable. Well, who doesn't, right now? But more so, I wasn't raised with the internet. I wasn't raised on having any of that, technology stuff, but I mean, learning it just happens differently. You know, with my son, if I can use it, he's a Gen Zer, right? So he just learns from watching YouTube all the time. You know, he's learned in a lot of respects more about, you know, history because he's just taken an interest in it than he ever would have. Ever would have in a classroom,
right?
You know, because he just had that opportunity, and so, so I have to remember that, you know, a lot of the learning and the help and even the job function revolves around with what we do, it just doing some independent research, and so allowing for that in a job versus okay, what are you doing on your computer? Okay, well. It's okay to give that time and space, which for me, you know, every moment, every minute, you just through all my development and occupation and growth, you know, what are you doing on the computer? That's for games. That's not for productivity. That's for fun, you know, or you're writing a paper or you're doing an email. It's either work or fun. You can't combine both. Whereas, you know, if I'm doing a research, you know, I felt bad when I first started at just for example, I felt bad when I first started a little bit. I was still doing some research, trying to learn some applications for our Adobe programs.
Yeah.
And I had to learn these, and I'm like, well, I guess I got to be a Gen Zer here. look up how to do it, but it was the quickest, easiest way. So I guess when I think about our team or just interacting with new hires, you know, there's multiple, I mean, whether you're talking intergenerational, international, you know, just crossing any, I don't know, call them barriers, but just ways to get to know people. You really can't approach it with, you know, you're not my age, you're not my type, you don't look like me, but just approach it in a way that, you know, just being open to listen and patient and listening to understand and, you know, seeking what is it I can do to help you progress in your job, you know, and being clear in that.
Being clear in
that direction. I don't know. I'm just kind of all over the place.
That's super interesting because when you were talking about that they value the internet, so I'm like on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z, so I feel like I can kind of relate to both in some aspects, but when I think about that statement of like we value the internet, I also like you made it perfectly clear. A lot of Gen Zers value the internet in a way where they will go to the internet before they'll network with somebody or ask the question. You know, so like they'll be like, you know, instead of trying to ask for help, you know, or network with people and have those conversations, whatever they may be, we'll just try to figure it out on our own. And then if we can't figure it out, then we have to ask. And it's kind of like this, we want to be independent, but kind of want to be to ourselves and don't want to network type deal. And I think that was one of the things when I stepped into this position that I had to grow into. When I first started, I remember that first week you're like, hey, over the next month or so, focus on going to the different departments, getting to know people, learn the process. That was stretching for me. Before that, I was just like, get in, do my job. You know, if I got to figure it out, I'll figure it out. But there was no networking of people and getting to know people and asking the hard questions. Yeah. So when I stepped out of my shell and had to do that, it opened the door for opportunity. Yeah. It opened the door for relationships with people. And now it's those relationships and those networks are like so much more beneficial now that I'm working on other projects later, you know, 6, 7, 8 months down the line. I'm like, oh, I can just refer to this person instead of trying to go the hard route and figure it out.
Yeah. No, I think you make a key point there because it is something, you know, maybe I wasn't intentionally going that direction, but just an experience with, you know, doing training and finding information, you know, you can only do so much, you know, on the internet sometimes, you know, I mean, when it comes to the internal processes and things like that, where, you know, we have a certain way that we're going to, you know, we need to train on a certain way that's done right in the building and in our particular roles, whatever it may be. And there's only like some internal tribal knowledge, if you allow that, you know, that is you know, not found anywhere but asking the questions, you know. So no, I think that's a key thing where, you know, if you're and I'm glad that was stretching to you. I guess I didn't kind of realize that until, you know, this conversation that, you know, it was, once you left, one thing I'm thinking about you, if I can talk about you.
Yeah, yeah.
Once you left the hands-on part of the job into the training job, I knew right away, and we had these conversations as well, that is your knowledge, your content knowledge is only going to be as good as that last day you left.
Right.
Some of the things, not to take away from the knowledge you gained and the experience, and that's all valuable. I find it's been valuable too when I go out into the real world and see what's going on. But at that point, you have to get into that subject matter expert, what's going on here and now if you're going to be developing. I think you learn that pretty quickly. I remember a couple times where it was just small stuff. It was like, well, here's how we used to do it. And here's how we did it when I was there. And maybe like within a month, it was different.
Completely different.
Yeah. Like even a whole section of what you did isn't even there anymore.
Yeah. I remember.
Well, it is, but it's different. Yeah.
It was so many of those aha moments where you're working on something. Well, that's how we did it. Oh, but that's not how it's done. So we have to revamp it.
Yeah.
Literally within a week. And I was talking with Ian, and I was like, literally the moment you step out, things just change, and it's just so much harder to just, not harder, but like, it's just different. And
it's a pivot. It's a pivot from going to that, I know it, I can write it, I can author it, to now, I'll own it, author it, and write it, but you have to feed me what is right. And you have to, or what is the correct process, or whatever the correct explanation is. And so you're taking it more from an investigatory standpoint, like that word, investigatory standpoint, versus, like, hey, this is what we do day in, day out. Now I can write all this out, or whatever it is. And now we can deliver this. Ian's working on like a brand new, function within, one of the programs that he's like, oh, I wish I would have had this when I was out there. So he's already seeing lots of the different changes, and he's already helped with even some of the software development, being able to play with it, and so we have to allow in our roles together. And I guess if we're talking intergenerational and exploratory, that time for exploring what is happening. So I guess I see that more as opening the sandbox up, so where, I don't know, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but
no, that's
example is
it's
just
good.
Where you're helping someone learn it, you have to rely on the other kids to show you how to use the right toys in the sandbox. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It's like one of those things that when I think about it, I was thinking that's just a good point to talk about. And just, I think it's just good all around, something to take with anyone who's listening, is that no matter where you come from, no matter what generation, whatever, no matter what you're a part of, right? Like, it's super important skill to always stay connected, right? And I always use that reference, right? We're better together, right? And I always reference that because it's true that no matter, like, we're gonna need to rely on people, and that's part of just any professional development. That's part of any team that you're a part of. Like, it's not about being the best and being, but it's about like, hey, how can we make each other greater? And that's kind of how I look at it when I'm working on a project. Hey, not I'm in competition with somebody or, oh, I have to do it by myself because I have to prove myself. But no, hey, it's okay to be like, hey, I don't have no idea what this is.
Right.
So can you teach me and let me know the process? Because, and it's a humbling thing, right? It's a humbling thing because you're learning and you're asking for help. And I think that's something that should always be a part of any type of professional development, is never be afraid to ask the hard questions.
Yeah, I think, no matter what spectrum of role you have, whether you are in management, whether you're, whatever situation, you always have to keep your eyes open for just those opportunities to not only help yourself grow, help others grow, help understand, how to increase productivity in ways that, still allow for, I don't know, creativity as well. I mean, I just think creativity with our situation, in a lot of ways, because, we just don't want to stay in the same, basic box of description on how we train people, how we explain the right processes. And I'm excited to see, some of the things that you're bringing up too, coming soon with some of the scenario-based learning and some of those opportunities. But Yeah, I guess one thing you mentioned there, just about looking at each of the different roles and each of the different ways to just act independent. I guess we all even different. I've seen in some of our folks or previous people that I've worked with, they just feel like they have to be independent and they have to demonstrate that I can do this on my own. I don't need help. Which is fine, in some regards. Like, okay, yes, you were able to bring that product together, that process together, that whatever it is you're working on, your project. But what demonstrates to me that maturity and that level is that you are open to asking the questions that are relevant. If you're not sure what to ask, you're finding out from a peer, or if you need something, you're asking the peer. You're not trying to make it up as you go. And I think with our team, we're realizing where skills and strengths exist, and I'm still trying to learn some of those things. But at the same time, where I may see a strength and a skill that you excel in, say you, Isaiah, excel in, I still need to remember to ask that question. Is that something you like doing? Because just because you're strong at it, I may fall into the trap of assigning you very specific things that are only in that column of strength. Whereas I'm not building you up. I'm just keeping you in what I feel is comfortable for you. But is that really stretching you? It's not. It's presenting to you, almost exploiting your skills, but not allowing you to grow. So I have to be conscientious of, okay, here's a skill set that you're solid in, but let's take that into other areas, other arenas of development.
Yeah, I think that's really good. What were some of the, I guess, we can use me as an example, from when I started to now, that you see any challenges maybe with in any way, because when I came into this, I had no prior experience to any type of corporate life. All I knew was just working on the floor. All I knew was that was it. And so coming from an entry level position and then going into something that's a little bit different and working with managers and working with even directors and all of those types of roles, I think for me it was a culture shock, because I was like, I don't know what to do, right? So like, what were some of the challenges in leading me, or not necessarily maybe leading me, that you saw that I was dealing with, and how did you help? How did you feel like it was best for you to help in those situations? Because there was multiple situations where, even in our own one-on-ones that I've told you, like, man, thank you for encouraging me in this or doing that, because it helped me, bridge the gap or whatever it was. Right. So I don't know. I guess the question I'm asking is, what were some of those challenges that you saw right off the cusp that you were like, man, maybe he needs some help in this, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think at the beginning, and I think we each kind of step into our own, like, okay, I've never done this before. I'm very nervous. On some of those situations, I could see what you're about to step into a little bit more, because, well, either I've done it before, or I've been in your shoes, or I've coached others or trained others in your shoes before. And so it's easy for me to just probably sit back and say, oh, it'll be fine, and think, he'll figure it out. But at the same time, I had to meet. We met frequently, at least once a week. Our desk was right there next to each other too. But just understanding, and I'm still learning, what it is on a day-by-day basis. And I think we're getting better at that now. We're figuring that better out. What is my routine? What is your routine? And so even the first couple of weeks, you were very proactive, so that helped. You were pretty driven and actually challenged me. Like, yeah, I should probably make a list of like you are right now. And that was encouraging. But I know I've been through, and you have too. I've made my list, and I've had that diligence, or I've tried to incorporate discipline in my day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month. And then it just wanes when I get into a certain project. So my challenge is to continue to challenge you and ask those questions and find out. But there's some specific times, where I think you were just more anxious, is what it seemed to me, to
absolutely
step out. And one of the things I remember telling myself when I first started here, and I think early on, I remember telling you this, was don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to step out and be you. There's a reason you were hired. It wasn't because, we just thought you could maybe do a good job. There's a reason, and so because you were you, and we're still, in an hour-long interview, you can only tell so much. But as we still continue to grow and to continue to be professionals, or to learn what that word professional even means, and approach situations properly. Again, what is properly sometimes.
Yeah.
But, just to find the right answers. I think it was very important for you to understand that. It was for me, at the time. And so that's maybe where I was aligning was, I'm stepping back into a world that I was in before, probably been 10, 12 years in a similar analogous, role. So stepping back into that for me was very much like, okay, I don't want to feel like I am – sorry, now it's about me.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I am running underneath someone's thumb above me, and I need to make sure I'm always stepping in the right square as I go. I don't want that for me ever again, and I don't want that for anyone that reports to me. I want you, Ian, Abe, to always feel like you have that ability to make the decisions. Now, I'll help guide.
Absolutely.
And you would ask a lot of questions before on the communication style. You're like, okay, do I send an email to him, and her?
Yeah.
You're like, well, maybe just one, or don't even send an email. Go out and talk to them. And that's what I've learned from you a little bit too. Is don't forget that connectivity with being with people in our kind of our space that we have that we work in. For if people that are listening don't know this, we have an office area and the work area, the warehouse area. And so once you cross that threshold into the office, you then become one in the office. Yeah. And you are, just that stigma of, okay, now you're the one in the, what was it?
In the air conditioning.
In the air conditioning. Okay, yeah.
You're in the air conditioning.
Even though it's all temperature controlled, but yeah. But no, it is. There's a difference.
There is.
You have to badge in to get into the office. It's just this kind of separation, unfortunately, how it's set up. But at the same time, it takes that effort to stretch back into it and demonstrate, I'm willing to do it. One of the things that I learned and that I want to keep imparting in my own life in this job, and along with you, Ian and Abe, and I think you all do a really good job of this, is just continuing that connection with folks, because humbly so. Like I don't do your job on a day-to-day basis. This training that I'm helping create, so we are creating it together. We are educating your fellow peers. We are building a program together, and I can put something together, but if I don't have your buy-in, if I don't have your approvals, if I don't have the right processes, it's just not going to work. So, so anyway, I went all over.
No, that's good, because I'm glad you touched on that, because that was such a big part of it. Like, it was when you do come over, people see that, right? And like, oh, they're in the office now, right? They're whatever that is, and so it just made me think and be better at reflecting, hey, how am I still keeping those connections with people? When I go out on the floor, when I'm talking to them, I'm like, hey, how are you? Stopping, making sure you keep those relationships, good and fresh. And yeah, that was super important. That's something that's really important. And one of the things that I remember when I started that you told me, I remember telling you specifically, I was like, one of the things I'm maybe not 100% sure on is like emails and communications. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I just want to share to everyone and anyone, like even if you're managing people who have never been in the field or whatever that are new, you guys, like you said, you hired me for a reason. And for me, I was like, man, they gave me a chance. They gave me a shot, right? They saw my potential. They gave me a shot. And then you took it the next step further, and you said, in our one-on-ones, you made sure, I was once in his shoes. How can I give him the advice that I wish someone would have gave me that you may not have had? Or how can I lead in a way that I needed someone to lead me? And that's super important for anyone that's leading anyone. Always put yourself in that person's shoes. And I think that's something that our team dynamic has we do super well in, is just bring the honest space of hey, how are you? Hey, how can I help you? And I mean, every one-on-one that we have, hey, what can I do better? Hey, how can I help you? You're constantly asking me those questions, and you're constantly creating a space of let's be honest where we're at. And that's okay. Yeah. Even with our projects, hey, when can you get this done by? hey, and if you can't, that's totally okay, but like, let's be in communication about it, and let's set up metrics to be able to meet those goals. And doing that, and that, keeping that honesty helped me get structure, get that type of level of accountability that I needed. And it also encouraged me to be like, hey, they see me, they understand me, and they're trying to help me because they believe in me. And so that was super important. I guess to kind of wrap up all of this, what is some of, and I don't feel rushed, but like, I guess to take a moment to think about what is some advice that you would give anyone leading a team. It doesn't matter in any sphere. What is some just leadership advice that maybe you've learned that you would give to someone leading a team?
It's, we have the generic things like, respect me, and I'll respect you type of, some of those different types of sayings or phrases, but legitimately, so be with the person when you're with the person. If you're setting up a one-on-one, give them the respect they have as a fellow human being, and listen and have a structure ready for conversation. I mean, one-on-ones are key. Sometimes they may take longer, sometimes they may not need to take very long at all. But, if you can, as a leader, there are times where you have to use discernment, and there are things that you can't express because decisions on other levels that you may not even know haven't been determined. Then be honest about that. I can't share with this part with you, but and I may legitimately not know how this is going to affect you, me, us as a team, but when you do have that ability to look someone in the eye and understand what are the things that I can help you with, and it takes time, but I think that's just the major key. Are you listening, and are you listening to understand, or are you listening to respond? We hear those different things in communication courses all the time. Like you need to always have your ears open and be paying attention. I try to keep a little notepad next to me to jot things down, or keep notes, and then refer back to those, if there's something that I've missed in the past. And I'm not diligent at it, but there's sometimes where I'll mess up or have a misstep, but that's where I've found to gather more productivity in that way as well. Like you said, I'm going to be a straight shooter. I'm going to tell you that we need to, as a team, do X, Y, or Z, whether it's a perception of our team or whether it's a perception of our deliverables that aren't happening or that need to happen. We're still determining a lot of that too right now. We're still building that structure. That phase, And so I guess that would be my biggest advice is, be transparent with your team, be transparent with your each individual one-on-one. They'll appreciate it. And a lot of times they just want to be heard, if someone for example, if someone approaches you and there's just not direction, that's where it gets so frustrating to an employee that employees I've had in the past where what's our direction? And there's no answer in sight. Then, the best thing I can do is be an advocate for them. There's one thing just to write it down on a notepad, but what am I going to do with that afterwards? So proactive follow-up, listening, being transparent, just all those little pieces of communication that demonstrate to who you're sitting across the table from that you actually do care about what is going on in the situation at hand.
That's
I don't know.
Good. That's really good. I appreciate all of that. And you said the word transparency. That is just the key word. I think that's just a key word. No matter what capacity you lead in, it's so important to be transparent. I mean, it's not saying, hey, you have to share every single thing, but it's just being honest to just where you're at. Like you said, I can't share this with you, but here, let me encourage you in this, right? Those little things like completely will help someone, especially in my shoes. And, I guess kind of like going into that next phase like that, for me, when I look at this, I guess a question flipped would be, what were some suggestions I would have for someone who's coming into my shoes, right? A young professional or someone who's, maybe younger on a team stepping into a place where people that have all these years of experience. And I think, and I want you to think about this too, as I'm kind of talking through it. some advice that I would give is, one, be transparent, just like they are with you, number one, and just, always be faithful, available, and teachable, right? I keep saying that. That's one of those things that I always say, be faithful, available, teachable, because one of the things that I've noticed is that over the last several months, I have become more and more like my leader, like you. And that's a positive thing. It's not that you're trying to be them, but you take on the attributes of them that you are learning from them, right? One of the things I'm learning from you, Brad, is I learned how you have those hard conversations with people. How when we sit in certain meetings or when we sit in and have conversations with people, I pick up on your cues and how you talk to them. And I'm like, okay, I remember that for next time I have that conversation. Yeah. Always be learning, always be willing to just be like, oh, let me grab that and make it your own. Because that's going to help you later down the line. And the other part for someone who may be coming into a new career or profession, whatever it is, always be available. Not that you have to be a yes man, but be honest. Like, you've told me this recently. Hey, you don't have to respond to the email right away. Right. You can read the email, but you don't got to respond to it like at that second. But learn to measure when things need to be responded to. And I think that, when you've asked me, hey, can you come sit in for this onboarding piece? Or, hey, can you come sit in for this piece or that piece? Yeah, let me be there. And it was not because I just want to be a yes person, but because I knew that I can learn something from that conversation. Hey, Brad has experience in implementing department training. Let me sit in that conversation and learn that and be like, okay, he did this, right? I take notes on, oh, he said this. He said, he did this part and he was intentional with how he did that, and you said, I've had 20 plus, I've done this 20, for 20 years I've done this. And I'm like, okay, that's why it's important to take notes about those things and it's important to be available in those conversations in those times. So I don't know, any suggestions on top of that?
No, I'm never one to be a fan of people dropping numbers like that. But yeah, that's why I was thankful you were there. I was like, man, I don't have time to write these notes down in this outline. I feel pretty confident of the script that I go through a lot of times. But, then I guess that's more of a demonstration of once you get it down, own it, and you can have flexibility within that structure, of course. But yeah. I guess one real quick thing that we didn't really touch on, I have had folks, we talk intergenerational, that were, more seasoned, is how I'll say it.
Yeah.
Than I, and in the same respect, it's still a little different. There's understanding. You've been there, done that. I haven't, and you've seen more than I have. So I need to tap. And same with you. In the other respect, for someone who has different experiences, maybe fewer years, but still their experiences and their years, and no matter what level or length of time those experiences have happened, I have to be open and willing to understand and listen. And I don't have all the answers, and that's too much pressure on me. And I'm going to help people discover the direction to go, and then after that, I'm going to learn from that direction too. So
it's good.
But anyway, I just want to kind of bring that tie in, multi-generational.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think, I guess to put the cap on it, and screw it on. One of the things that I've learned over the years, even in my other spheres of influence like church and all of that stuff, is that there is always a need for the seasoned leaders and the young leaders, right? There's a need for both, and it's not that one's more important than the other, but they balance each other. The young people can definitely run with the vision and do the things and may have all the skills, but you need the wisdom of the seasoned leaders to guide them, right? Because if you have all of this young drive, that's like you have all of this passion and all of this zeal, and you're doing all of these things and energy, but it has no direction. And it's like shooting aimlessly at a target. But the seasoned leader grabs them and says, hey, go this direction and we're going to hit something. And it's having that balance of both. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Hope to come again.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have a one with all of us at the table.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be really fun.
I don't know if we get much accomplished.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in to the One-on-One podcast. Again, my name's Isaiah. Hope you learned something today, and I hope you grasped something that you can use and utilize in your personal life. So until next time, all right, let's get it.